There are 6.5 billion people in the world. Line them up as if on a parade ground, then inspect them like a commander-in-chief. Roughly every 100th person you pass will be British. Every 1500th or so will be a New Zealander. Every 5th will be Chinese. Officially, China has 1.3 billion citizens. Actually, it has rather more, perhaps as many as 1.6 billion. That's, as near as makes no difference, a quarter of the world's population. It's also 5 times as many people as America's got. Having gone to the trouble of gathering 6.5 billion people into one place, do another little exercise. Ask all the farmers to step forward, the people who make their living by tilling the soil or tending the livestock. Of these, 1 in 3 will be Chinese. Dismiss the people and line up the world's pigs. I have no statistics on British or Kiwi pigs, but every second pig in your line will be Chinese. China produces 49% of the world's pork and eats the lot. The figure for ducks is even more impressive, but they are harder to line up. To put it simply, China is unimaginably big, and China is booming. That boom has only just begun. Most Chinese people remain poor, but they're keen to do whatever it takes to become rich. So China looks set to dominate the 21st century. And once it's gained domination, there seems no reason why it shouldn't retain it for however many centuries belong to our species. China is just too big to argue with. Only India could put up much of a fight, and I don't think it will. Already most of us are clothed by China, shod by China, supplied with hardware by China, effectively in debt to China. And yet most of us know very little about China. My experience is typical. I left university 30 years ago ostensibly educated. My knowledge of China was nil. Such ignorance has precedence. Until the 13th century, when Marco Polo got banged up in a Genoese prison and passed the time by telling tall stories to his cellmate, very few people in the West knew anything much about China. Back then, travel was more difficult and ignorance more understandable. Today, China is only a day in a plane from anywhere else on the planet. And yet for most of us, China remains mysterious and somehow threatening. The reasons lie in China itself. In the Chinese language, 2 characters represent the country. The first is a rectangle with a vertical stroke through it. It means middle. The second looks like a malformed Christmas tree in a box. It means people. China sees itself, and has always seen itself, as the centre of the world. To the Chinese, China is all. It is the middle kingdom with the mandate of heaven. And the non-Chinese bits of the world have never mattered much. For a couple of millennia, China led the world in technology and pretty much anything else. Only since the 18th century has the West effectively caught up with China and then overtaken it. But the West's triumph looks like proving brief. China has rejoined the race and is coming up very fast on the rails. It will get its nose ahead soon, and then it will streak away again. This book recounts my first experience of China. There are plenty of better informed books about China, but I suspect this is the only one to begin with a pair of underpants.